Hi everyone. Today I'm going to give you a talk about some of the field work that we did last January in Cambodia and looking at the gem deposits of Phnom Bayong, which is in Kirivong in Takeo province in the south of Cambodia. So the subtitle for this is Three Mineralogists and a Paleontologist Melt in the Cambodian Heat, because January in Takeo last year was ridiculously hot. We were looking at 40, 45 degrees in the sun, and Celsius, that is. And it was quite the adventure to be working in that heat. So Kirivong is located in the south of the country, right down by the Vietnam border. And you can see in the picture, there's two little lobes of red. This is a map of all the intrusions that are known in the country. Fortunately, there's not a lot of work done in Cambodia, and certainly not a lot of age dating done to have an idea of what how old some of these intrusions are. But Kirivong has been dated, and we've dated as well, and it's about 71 million years old, and it's located right here. The rock itself is a coarse-grained granodiorite. It's an A-type granite, which means that it's enriched in large ion lithophile elements, high field strength elements, and fluorine. Lots of fluorine. They mine fluorite here as from veins, and it's also present in a lot of them in the fluorite as a mineral, and then also fluorine as a component in a lot of the mineral species. Pegmatite bodies are lenticular to dike-like. There are some large pockets. Most of the pegmatites themselves, the majority of the ones that we find, are completely filled. There's no open spaces, so it's a complete enclosed center. But we did find quite a few larger pockets, up to about maybe 4 or 5 feet wide, that had space in them, and some really nice quartz crystals, and I'll show you those in a bit. There are quartz crystals known from here that are about 5, 6 feet long, and I can't imagine how big those pegmatites were when they were found them, but I haven't ever seen them, and if they are still being mined, I haven't heard of them now. I think those are crystals and pockets that were found many years ago. So mining here has been taking place for quite a while, about 2 decades, 3 decades, but it's done by locals, and it's basically artisanal mining using quite old methods. They're either digging in stream beds, or, as the next picture I'll show you, they're using old techniques of actually firing the rock to get down to some of the ore zones. So this is just a picture of us coming down from one of the barrel localities, walking back down the mountain and headed south, basically southwest, and the mountains in the distance you can see are actually Vietnam. One of the first mines we went to after a very long slog up the mountainside, we discovered how out of shape we actually were. This is a fluorite locality, so they're mining veins of fluorite within the granodiorite itself. So a lot of fluorine moving around in this system. And in order to get down to the veins, they actually use fire. So they set a lot of logs on fire, and then wait for the rock to be charred and broken up and cracked. Then they chip it all away and then do it again until they get down to the fluorite vein. So the veins that they're mining are like this here. This is the owner of the mine that we bought some samples from. The one he's holding, we actually bought, and you can see they're useful for doing some carving or for making sculptures or cabs. Not terribly gem quality in a way, but interesting samples nonetheless. From a geological point of view, it's interesting to know that there's that much fluorine moving through this system. Some of the other mines that we had a chance to look at, this is a mine that, well, it's an open pit actually. They're just digging straight down through the layers of alluvium that has deposited on this old creek bed. So in the wet season, this would be a stream coming down from the top of the mountain, and they're just digging through, basically trying to collect aquamarine crystals or topaz crystals that have fallen through the layers. So you see on the right that he's dug down and then horizontal as well, which is pretty dangerous given that this is really just slightly consolidated sand. But when they find, this is the bulk of the way that they're getting out aquamarines and topazes from this locality. They do some hard rock mining, but as you can see, it's difficult. They don't have a lot of good tools to do that. So a lot of the material comes from these old stream beds. A lot of the work that we did was in the two quarries that exist on the mountain. There's one on the east side of the mountain that's owned by a Chinese company, which is the one that's shown here in this picture. And then there's one on the west side, the southwest side, that's actually owned by the wife of the Prime Minister, Hun Sen, Prime Minister of Cambodia. So both quarries are used for building stone. They cut them into blocks for tiling and for facings for buildings, and shipped overseas. Here's some of the quarries that we're working in. This quarry specifically was one of the more productive for us, the one on the left. The one on the right, we didn't find too much material. We found a few small pockets that we were able to work, but we had a good chance to wander around and work because the miners or the quarry operators weren't actually working that day. It was luckily we were there during Chinese New Year, so it was pretty quiet. Otherwise, this place is operating most days. You can see her working in some pockets that we found in the quarry wall. So Ina's poking her hands into one of the pockets to get out. Mostly at the time, I think, was microcline twins and some nice chlorite rosettes. And then on the right, you can see this is a nice green fluorite cube that I managed to pull out of that cavity. And it has inclusions of actinolite in it. In one of the quarries, we were lucky enough to find some very large pockets. The boulder that we're working on right now, Ina saw out of the corner of her eye at the end of one of the days that we were there, and we spent about 3 or 4 days working to get all the material out of this pocket, and very kind of cramped in between a couple other boulders, but a lot of nice material came out of here. And we lost, I think, 5 chisels in the process down the boulder slope. So trying to go into a small town in Cambodia and find chisels, explaining to your guide and to the shop owners what you want, was kind of interesting. But we managed to find some good ones and bring home the majority of what's in this pocket. It was mostly quartz and microcline, a lot of sulfides, some fluorite cubes, I think one tiny little topaz crystal, but it was a lot of fun to work on, and a lot of very tiring given the heat at this time in the day. So the minerals that we've identified to date, you can see the list of them here, and we have a lot of sulfides and a lot of beryllium minerals, which beryllium minerals is maybe not to be expected, but the sulfides, the array of sulfides minerals were a little bit surprising. And there's also some strange things in there like opal, and also some of the micas turned out to be quite interesting as well. Sorry, there are some rare earth phosphates and some thorium uranium phosphates in there, but we haven't quite figured out what they are. They're too small to X-ray. We managed to get a couple beams on them for doing EDS, but nothing that can actually tell us what they are. So quartz is one of the main minerals that the miners are looking for. They do all kinds of crazy things with it, from cutting it into gemstones to polishing it and making it look like various kind of waterfall-ish sculptures. The crystal on the left, the nice smoky quartz crystal, this is a common color for some of the crystals that occur in the pockets, and they range up to, I've seen samples from here in gem shops in Phnom Penh that range up to about 4 feet long, and nice kind of multiple crystal bundles. One in the middle, it was one of the ones that we found, or actually I think we bought this one, and it contains crystals of chamosite in the center, nice little rosettes. And on the right is a slab that one of the miners had for sale. The crystals are about 12 to 16 inches long at the largest ones, but these slabs are quite common with really nice microclines, and the microclines and some of the pockets are quite covered in a clay material, which is montmorillonite, and some goethite, and some other unknown amorphous clays as well. So they take a bit of cleaning up, but they clean up quite nice. One of the main gemstone that's mined here at Kirivong are topaz, and the blue one in the center is one of the biggest ones that I've seen at 506 carats. And And some of them have this very nice light blue color, but for the most part, they're colorless to slightly yellow, and they cut into very nice stones. They have quite a few etching patterns on them. Most of them are terminated. You can see a couple that are well rounded from being tumbled. Those streams that come down the mountainside are active for quite a bit of time during the wet season, so they do a good job of rounding out the topaz crystals and most of the other crystals. But there are some beautiful little topaz crystals to be found, and they would cut great if you were so inclined. These are a collection that we have that's showing the different forms and different etching patterns on them. Aquamarine is the other gemstone that they're mostly interested in, and these are some nice ones that a miner brought us. Gem dealer brought us to purchase, but we didn't want to purchase any of them. They have the market on them there because it's the only place in the country that you can mine aquamarine from, and they sell them at absolutely ridiculous prices. So we got some rough material like this that's good for research, but we didn't buy any of the gem material. Micas are interesting. There's at least 2, possibly 3 generations of micas. So you can see that the mica in the center actually has a core that is crystallographically oriented in one direction, and the rim is actually completely different. And it's almost oriented perpendicular to that, and that's the crystal that you can see in the bottom SEM image, where you can see the change in grain orientation here. And the color in these backscattered images, the brighter material is more iron dominant, so it's siderophyllite, and then the darker material is actually a polylithionite. So there's an exchange between iron and lithium between these 2 species. But you can tell obviously that the core material is quite pink, very more lithium dominant than anything, and you get these nice pinky purple lithium micas. And then the outside, they're absolutely gorgeous, actually, these micas. Nice little books on the outside, and then these overgrowths. Some of them are a nice, almost phlogopite kind of beige brown color as well, and these ones are perfectly colorless if you get a light up really close to them. There's quite a few sulfides at this locality: sphalerite, arsenopyrite, pyrite, marcasite, and galena. There's also some molybdenite here as well, and which isn't surprising because there's actually a molybdenite galena deposit that was mined for a little while just south of the mountain. So there's obviously some metalliferous fluids that have been moving through this complex for quite a while. So on the left, you can see the galena, nice little modified cubes of galena in amongst the micas, and on the right is a very large sphalerite cluster, basically. And if you look really closely, it's actually a dark red brown. On the backside, there's some absolutely gorgeous 1 to 2 millimeter arsenopyrite crystals, absolutely doubly terminated. Just really pretty little things. Feldspar is one of the more common minerals in all of the pegmatites and also in the host rock. Quite often in little twins like this, and the green rosettes on it are chamosite, and this one is one of the ones that has a bit of covering of some bertrandite on the other side and a little bit of opal. The one on the right has little colorless cubes of fluorite on the bottom corner. Fluorite is a very common mineral, not only in the veins that they're mining, but also in some of the fracture surfaces. You can see the fracture surface in the middle has little fluorite octahedron that are about 1.5 centimeters in size at the most. And then on the right are the fluorite cubes within the pegmatite themselves. So you can see the little colorless to slightly green fluorite cubes nestled in amongst the feldspar crystals. Some of the more unusual minerals, bertrandite is not common, but it's found as a secondary mineral on some of the microcline surfaces. So you can see here, it's they're tabular, kind of bladed, colorless crystals, up to about 3 millimeters in size. So obviously some secondary beryllium mineralization happening, and also lots of schorl, some tourmaline in some of the localities, and it's a bit spread out. Doesn't occur in all localities it seems to occur in more quartz veins than it does in actual pegmatites. So it's probably more hydrothermal than it is actually a pegmatitic type assemblage. Chlorite occurs, it's a chamosite, and it occurs as rosettes on the microclines, and also, well, throughout basically all the pegmatites, and also as rosettes inside some of the quartz crystals. And you can see in the SEM image of the chlorite, all the bright spots are actually those rare earth phosphates that I was mentioning before. And opal is one of the strange ones that we found, and it covers some of the microcline crystals and the secondary minerals on top of the microcline, and it just coats it in all these nice kind of globular coating. And you can see it's devitrifying or dewatering quite quickly in these images under the beam. They were under the beam for quite a while, so they're starting to dehydrate and crack up. So thank you very much for listening to my talk, and hopefully one day we'll be able to actually get back together and do this in person. Just a few last photos, a picture on the last one of the crystals that we bought from this lady and her husband. And then on the middle and the right is our crab feast. We went down to Kampot, which is located about an hour away from Kirivong, right on the ocean, and for about $5 you can get all of those crabs and cooked and have a pretty good feast. Okay, thank you very much.